Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome for everyone for today's webinar. Welcome to the speakers of the day, participants, and everyone who have joined. Let us have an introduction to Embrace. Embrace is an open community for mothers by mothers. It is a platform for parents having child with special needs. Embrace is supported by large group of volunteers, different professional backgrounds like special educators, counselors, therapists, psychologists, etc. Following are the services rendered by Embrace. We have free counseling sessions to parents of special needs children to manage their emotional well-being. There will be a link which will be shared in the chat window. Kindly register for your counseling, or you may refer your friends and family who might need this. We also have free webinars conducting mostly every week, which provides information and knowledge required in the journey of parenting children with special needs. Now I request Mrs. Vijayalakshmi ma'am to take it forward.
So to tell about the speakers of today, Mrs. Vinaya Varghese, she has the qualification of MCOM and Diploma in Education on Cerebral Palsy, and she has work experience of 7 years working with the students with neuromuscular difficulties, and currently she is working with spastics as a professional in special education. She is handling a mixed group of students, including adolescents. She is also a mother of 6 child. And the next speaker is Mrs. Subhashini. She is having a qualification of bachelor's degree from in physiotherapy, and she is from Garden City College, Bangalore. She is currently working with Spastic Society of Karnataka for past 11 years in rehabilitation of children with neuromuscular developmental disability as a physiotherapist. And now over to the team from Spastics. Vinaya and Subhashini, please take it over.
Thank you, Vijayalakshmi ma'am. Good evening to all the participants present here. So we would start our session knowing what is cerebral palsy. It is a condition that results when a child experiences brain damage in the womb or immediately after birth. So let's see what is cerebral palsy. The definition goes that it describes a group of developmental disorders of movement and postures causing activity restrictions or disability that are attributed to disturbances occurring in the fetal or infant brain. So here it is the brain that is affected at the initial stages of pregnancy, during pregnancy, or immediately after delivery. So the motor impairments may be accompanied by a seizure disorder and by impairment of sensation, cognition, communication, or behavior. Next. Okay, let's see the types of cerebral palsy. Here, the 3 major types are the spastic cerebral palsy, the dyskinetic, and the ataxic. Now, under spastic cerebral palsy, there is hemiplegia, diplegia, and quadriplegia. Hemiplegic spastic children are mostly affected at one side of the body. That is, when you see that a person vertically divided, one part of the body is affected. Now, in children with diplegia, the lower limbs or the legs are affected, and there is scissoring happening here. Now, for children with quadriplegia, the arms, legs, and body is affected. There is stiff muscles and exaggerated reflexes in all the 3 cases. And the main area of the brain that is affected is the motor cortex. Now, with children with dyskinetic, there is two subgroups, that is the athetoid and the dystonic. In athetoid CP, there is abnormal or involuntary movements. There is lack of muscle control and movements. And in dystonia, there is slow movements and muscle rigidity. And the main area that is affected in the brain is the cerebellum and the basal ganglia. Next come the ataxic. Here, there is this inhibits balance and coordination, and again, it is the cerebellum that is affected. Now, depending on the location of the degree of damage, the cerebral palsy may range from mild to severe conditions. Let us look at some of the signs and symptoms. First, the delay in reaching motor skill milestones, such as rolling over, sitting up alone, or crawling. So there is a normal development in a child which we expect that at certain months the child has to do certain reach certain milestones. So when there is a delay, it is a sign of some developmental problem. Next, you can see the variation in muscle tone, such as being too floppy or too stiff. Here, it could be hypotonia or hypertonia. There is delay in speech development, especially you can see this in spastic quadriparesis and even in the dyskinetic children, where they have oromotor difficulties and speech delay. Then there are tremors or involuntary movements, which is mainly in the ataxic and athetoid type of CP. Excessive drooling and problems with swallowing. Then favoring one side of the body, where children are aware and active with using one side of the body. This is mainly the hemiparesis CP. And then there is seizures, intellectual disability, learning disability, vision and hearing disabilities. Causes of cerebral palsy. So now the major cause which we notice is the neurological damage to the brain, which happens before, during, or after birth. That is prenatal, perinatal, or postnatal. Failure of the brain to develop normally due to genetic disorders, chromosomal abnormalities, or faulty brain blood supply to the brain are also a cause. There are other instances where children in the first 1 or 2 years of their life may have an injury due to fall or accident. This also comes under cerebral palsy. So now we come into the early intervention and training. So early identification of the condition and intervention is of utmost importance in a child's future development. Complications at birth and delay in milestones are the pointers to identify children at risk of delayed development. So when you immediately after delivery, when there is such a complication in the child, and later in the first few months of the child's growth, when you see the delay in milestones, this is a pointer to show that the child is at risk. Then the pediatrician who's working with the child refers you to a neurologist, and there, along with the team of professionals like the physiotherapist, the occupational therapist, speech therapist, sensory integration, and special educator, use a multidisciplinary approach to plan the treatment and program for the child. Education, guidance, and counseling for parents. Here, recognizing the delay in the child's milestone, the parents would show a willingness to seek immediate medical advice. This is a first step in helping the child. Counseling and guiding parents by helping them to understand the condition and its impact on the development of the child is very important. This prepares the parent to take the right course of action in areas of therapy and education. The difficulties here faced by each child is different, so we cannot say there is a fixed set of intervention program that can be applied. Focusing on the strengths, the professionals, along with parents, can train the child in the right direction. Moving to the education for children with cerebral palsy, in the early years of growth, focus would be mainly on intervention in physical abilities, oromotor abilities, and responses to his or her immediate environment. Here, physiotherapy plays a very important role, and oromotor abilities, that is like sucking, swallowing, and vocalizing, will be the initial stages of development. Identifying the strengths and difficulties of the child in all areas of development through assessments and observation, an individualized educational program will be developed by the team of professionals. Following the intervention program regularly and consistently can show positive response in the child. So specialized training techniques using visual, auditory, tactile, and kinesthetic learning styles will be used by the special educator to make the concept understanding better. Here, each child may respond to a different sensory input. So it has to be tried and tested with the child to suit its comfort. Children who can cope with regular curriculum are integrated into mainstream schools with necessary accommodations. Here, accommodations would be a wide set of arrangements that would be needed to accommodate their locomotive difficulties, vision and hearing difficulties, and help of a resource room teacher. Now, others continue with their education and skill training based on their aptitude and ability to do the given task. Now, play. A lot of self-learning happens through play. There are different types of play, such as self-play, imitative play, parallel play, and interactive play. Children discover and learn new things from play. Hence, providing situations and environment for play is important. Here, in a normal growing child, play comes automatically for them when they are exposed into the environment. But with a child with movement difficulties, speech difficulties, play is one area where they don't explore on their own. So facilities have to be provided at home and at school to allow them to discover play. It would start off with self-play, where the child plays with their own things. Later, they start imitating people and playing. There would be parallel play, where another child is playing and he would try to play on his own. Then there would be interactive play, where they interact with each other and play. Socializing opportunities, providing opportunities to socialize with family members, attending functions and social gatherings, interacting with children of similar age group creates confidence in the child. Language and communication. Use of any one language helps in developing communication skills at a young age. Here, now, most of the children are familiar to the language spoken at home. So, when you are starting to teach communication language skills to the child, use any one language, either your local language or English, which is a commonly accepted language, to train the child. This helps them to pick up the language skills faster. Children who have speech difficulties can be introduced to AAC, or alternative augmentative communication, by the therapist based on the need of the child. Activities of daily living. Developing self-help skills such as independent feeding, undressing, dressing, health and hygiene activities should be trained from a very young age. There are various aids available to support children to be independent in these activities. Now, as we move on to adolescent and youth, the focus will be shifted in achieving. By now, they should have achieved independent living skills, developing thinking and analyzing skills, decision-making, and developing self-confidence and leadership qualities. You may notice behaviors such as anxiety, not willing to listen to parents, expectation to achieve difficult goals, physical changes, anger and frustration. Though typical in any adolescent, needs to be addressed with patience and understanding in a young adult with cerebral palsy. Based on the ability and skill development in the child, goal-oriented training is planned for a transition from school to employment. Here, the skills are trained at a very early age, the abilities are recognized, and training is started at a very early age so that the child is comfortable and ready by the time he is at a school living age to seek for employment. It could be sheltered employment or open employment. Train and guide the students to accept their limitations, learn skills, and lead a normal life. Now, depending on the severity of the condition of the child, he'll be trained to use aids and adaptations to support their growth and development in all areas. We use wheelchair and other locomotive aids to assist in mobility. Splints, gaiters, prone boards, and many such aids are trained with the child and made to use to support the child. For children with speech difficulties, AAC techniques will be used to help them to communicate better. Assistive technology, that may be low-tech or high-tech devices, are used based on the need of the child. Aids for daily living skills to help the child to be independent in these activities. The initial years are very crucial for a child with cerebral palsy, as early intervention helps them to develop in all areas of functioning. Positive attitude from the parents and total acceptance of the child builds an emotional well-being in the growing years and later. During this COVID-19 pandemic, it is challenging for parents to keep children involved in productive activities for the whole day. Also keep them safe from infection. In consultation with the teacher, routine activities and learning has to happen at home as per the weekly schedule planned for the child. So here, the teachers in most of the special schools have started the online class system, but it is difficult to do the classes just like regular schools, but still individually each child is given a program to work during the week and they send back what they have done. So I would conclude saying that children with cerebral palsy are like any other children in their needs. If they feel loved and cared, they blossom like beautiful flowers. If neglected, they do not develop to their potential. The important thing is to accept the child as they are and teach them to aspire and to achieve. So there's a quote here: parents who have children with special needs also have special needs. So they need to know more than the average parent. They need more patience than the average parent, and so much more in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vinaya. We have some queries which was shared by the participants during registration. And also, I request the participants to post your queries in the chat window that we can discuss with the team. Okay, so there is one question. She's asking what is the difference between mental retardation and cerebral palsy. I think she is new to the field and she wants to between the two.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Vinay, is it possible? Is it okay? Because we are not able to see you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so here cerebral palsy is more a brain injury which is affecting the whole body. So there is a lot of physical limitations in the child, and there is associated conditions with it. Whereas mental retardation, we now call it as intellectual disability, is more it is to the damage to the brain's development, but it doesn't affect the physical performance of the child.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So there is a question asking about the drooling problem in children with cerebral palsy.
Yeah. So this drooling, most of the children affected by spastic quadriparesis and dyskinetic generally have drooling in them. That is because of low oromotor functioning. So generally, it is the speech therapist who would put them on a program for oromotor exercises and to control drooling. So we use simple strategies in classrooms like blowing, puffing their mouth, and then to bring awareness around their mouth and oromotor area. So we do slight exercises which help them to reduce drooling.
Okay.
Okay, and after a certain level, it would only be the awareness in the child to that there is drooling and I need to clean. If it is not possible to achieve, then that is the awareness we try to bring in the child.
Okay, so bringing awareness with the child.
Awareness with the child, yeah.
Okay. So how to handle, what is the depression effect on disabled children, particularly with Down syndrome? And please discuss on that. That is what the request is.
I saw the question, depression effect of children on Down syndrome. So depression is an area where, it needs a little bit of medical treatment also. So if it is just that loneliness and things that are affecting the child, we would always suggest involving the child and the parent in groups with similar cases, with children who are affected with similar disabilities, interaction with them and exposure to more awareness about the disability would help them to come out of this depression. But then if it is in a severe case, medical intervention would be required.
Okay. What is the general or average IQ range of CP children?
There is no fixed IQ rate for CP children. There is a wide range of children who are totally, when it comes to the cognition level, there are very good children with high cognitive level. There are children with very low level also. So it depends on the degree of damage that is caused to the brain. So there is no fixed percentage as such.
Okay.
Excuse me. I'm Padma Janardhanan. I work with Vinaya in Spastic. I would just like to add one sentence to what Vinaya said regarding the IQ range of children with CP. Basically, because the children with CP have a lot of motor difficulties and their hand function and their physical performance in various ways are affected. So doing standardized tests for understanding IQ is very difficult with CP children. So it is basically through our observation and informal assessment that we need to understand the functional level, not as an IQ number, which is very difficult to obtain.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I hope it is clear because basically what as parents and teachers we need to do is understand what level the child is functioning through our own assessment and observation of various situations, the child in various situations, and plan activities and the learning objectives accordingly. Thank you. Sorry for butting in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Actually, we thank you for your presence and adding here and feeling the and for people, the participants, actually, she is the principal of the Learning Center in Spastic and very kind of her to come forward and help us. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So the next question is, what are the what type of work or job these people can do?
Okay. Now, this again depends on the limitation of the child. There are children with mild cerebral palsy who can be trained to work in open employment depending on their aptitude and based on their abilities and qualification, they can do any type of work. But when it comes to children who are affected, we do a lot of hand functioning tests and checks. So depending on that, different jobs are, vocational training is provided to children on those areas, and job opportunities are actually, when it comes to severe CP children, it is quite a difficult task for them to work. So computer oriented, if they are able to work on a computer, data entry and all that, that could be one major area where they can work.
Okay. And how to handle speech pronunciation in CP children? They're not able to say the hard sounds like the, sh, the.
Yeah. So speech is, when it comes to speech therapy, initial years, they try through therapy to improve the sounds, the pronunciation of the child. But in some cases, it doesn't develop even after continuous therapy. So we need to use alternative styles of communication, where if the child is able to write and show on an Avas program, so we train them to use technology to compensate for speech. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am. My name is Anuradha. I posted the question. I work with CP children. The parents are not willing to use any such devices. The problem is that the child is around 10 plus.
Yeah.
But he's able to speak. He's picking
Yeah.
up speech.
Okay.
But when we stress, when it comes to the reading part or spelling part, he's not recognizing.
Okay. So is it a reading difficulty or is it a speech difficulty?
Both.
Both. So you need to
Since he is
identify.
not speaking the sounds, he is not showing interest for reading.
Yeah. So see, the automotor difficulty in the child is limiting his ability to speak. Though according to him, he is saying the right word, but according to the listener, it is not the same word.
Correct.
So, yeah, here it is the parents who have to accept that the child has only that limit of range of motion. And especially if this is a child who has been continuously taking speech therapy, by now, they should have, by 10 years, they should have been able to recognize what the problem is. So I think you can speak to the parent about using alternative communication also to supplement his speech, not to totally take over his ability to speak. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So there is a question on, they want to know about the government policies that support the children with cerebral palsy.
Okay. So here, the government, as per there is an act, the National Trust Act, which explains all the government policies available. So I will just give me a minute. So there is early readiness scheme for children up to 10 years. And then the National Trust Act also provides various schemes for persons with disability like the Samarth, the Garuda, the Niramaya, Sahiyogi. Lots of schemes are there. It would be good if the person can just check into the National Trust Act to see. And again, there are schemes provided by the state governments also, which is different from state to state.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And does physiotherapy has any importance in
Once again, sorry for interrupting. I would like to just add to what Vinaya said.
Please.
So basically, for the academic areas, for children who are able to study and go in for school education, completion of school education and all, there is a lot of what do you call it? The accommodations. A lot of accommodations and relaxations for the education examinations and things like that. Okay, the use of scribe. Children who have difficulty in spelling, writing, they can use a scribe, and they can even use a computer. Now we have got the permission to use computer in the examination. There is also exemption for one language. Instead of doing 3 languages, they can just do 1 language. Then flexibility in choosing the curriculum through NIOS. If the children opt for NIOS, they can choose the curriculum which does not require practicals and lot of hand function abilities. So these are all the things that is available for children, and these kind of stuff really help children with cerebral palsy to complete education.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so how has the pandemic delayed progress, and can they pick up the delay, or will there be reversal in the?
Yeah, this is a question now even we are facing, because there may be regression in few children because of lack of practice and continuity in the program they have been following. So we at Spastics have made sure that children doesn't go through this difficulty. So they are in constant touch with their teachers, and weekly programs are being given to them. So again, it depends on whichever mode is comfortable for them. So some are coming through Google Meet, some come through video calls. So through various modes of communication, even through just telephone calls, we give them the weekly assignments that they can complete. and they present it back to us. And there is also a parent group which we have provided for the parents to share among each other the activities and the whatever they have done with their children. So in this way, we are trying to maintain that the education part of the child doesn't get delayed, and because of this pandemic, it shouldn't stop there. So there are few children who are really upset that they don't get an opportunity to come out to see meet people. So that is a difficulty which we are hoping should move away soon and the school should reopen.
Yeah. So, is there any specific assessment tool to diagnose cerebral palsy among children during early times, during early intervention?
Early intervention. Padma ma'am, would you like to say on this? Assessment tools?
Diagnosing children is not our job, like special educators' job. Usually done by the doctor, the pediatric neurologist. They do have their measurements by which they come to an understanding whether the child has cerebral palsy or not. Usually we get the children with the diagnosis. Since we at Spastics we have a pediatric neurologist, so he sees the child first and gives us the diagnosis. We are not qualified to speak, or even we don't even know that what kind of test they are doing. I'm sure there are. They do follow certain protocols before the diagnosis is made.
Okay, ma'am. So they have to reach to the right person.
Yes, right doctor. Yes, the pediatric neurologist is the right person to do the diagnosis.
Thank you, ma'am. And what are the classroom management strategies for CP student in inclusion setup?
Okay, so when it comes to an inclusion setup, it is generally a class strength is around 30 plus, 40 plus in each class. So there it is, it needs a lot of strategies that the management of the schools have to take up to accommodate the child with cerebral palsy. So basically they should provide classrooms for the at the lower level, at the lower floor, so that it's easy for a local wheelchair student to enter the classroom and attend class. So when it comes to a child with vision difficulties, speech difficulties, he should be given a seat right in front of the teacher so that it is easy for her to communicate to that child. And then provision to, for a scribe, if the child is finding difficulty to write or do his work on his own. So there should be a provision for somebody to help him. And then also in an inclusive schools, if there is a special educator, it would help him to pick up in the subjects and reach up with the other children. Okay, so these are few of the strategies that can be taken, and even the entry and exit points to be more accessible for this child, and exemptions from sports and all outdoor games. All these are a few strategies that the schools and management can take up.
Okay, and so there is a question they're asking. I think they want to know what is the youngest age they can enter into school support with the CP. She has asked what is the age of the youngest member in the program at your facility.
Okay, so the initial ages, it would not be a schooling as such. It would be a one-to-one intervention program that would be happening. And that would start around 3 years to 3 plus years. So then when the child crosses 4 to 5 years, I think the regular schooling would start. Okay, again, it would be a half-a-day program and then gradually increased to a full-day program. Initially, it would only be a 1 hour session. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just to add to what Vinaya said, we do start seeing children from right in the very beginning. Okay, as soon as the pediatrician makes a referral to us, it could be 1 month, and even in our sub-center in Indira Gandhi Hospital, we even see neonates. So the early intervention starts right at the before the child even turns 1. So in 1 month, 2 months. Once the doctors find some kind of difficulties in the child, they usually assess the muscle tone in the newborn itself. So that itself will tell them whether what the child's condition could be, what the child could be diagnosed as in the later stages. So when they look at those parameters, they do refer to us, and we start intervention from the very young babies itself. So as Vinaya said, it is not a schooling program at that point. It's only an early intervention stimulation program, what we call infant stimulation. So basically, the stimulation for physical and all the other milestones development, so that we can arrest the delay in the development. Maybe even Subhashini can talk about it a little bit. Subhashini?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, good afternoon, everyone. So, we start early intervention program even at the earliest, as early as possible. So, when it comes to Indira Gandhi Hospital setup, we start the early intervention program even for the newborn babies also. So even at Spastic Society, we start the program by the age of 1 or 2 months, because that is where the parents, they see that the child has not achieved the head control, the child is not moving the hands and legs freely. So that is where they start meeting the neurologist, and then the cases is being referred to physiotherapy and occupational therapy.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
thank you, Subhashini. Yeah, thank you.
thank you, Mrs. Subhashini. So this one is physiotherapy applicable to the adults with the CP also when they grow up also? Should they continue with the physiotherapy, or will there be any result is what they want to?
Yes, physiotherapy has a plays an important role in adult life of CP, because physiotherapy can help individuals to relieve muscle pain and stiffness, improve mobility, and prevent movement problems from getting worse. Overall, the main goal is especially to improve the ability to participate in and perform daily activities through the use of exercises, treatments, and assistive devices. And everything is tailored to the needs of each child. So it is important that each individual needs are thoroughly assessed by a professional, that's a physiotherapist, to better determine the right type of assistive technology. So, and though it is recommended that individuals with CP start treatment from an early stage, physiotherapy is just as important for adults as it is for children. In fact, an individual may be increasingly affected by the disability through life. So due to the extra stress and strain put on the body over time, as the body grows, there is also a need to maintain relative body strength in order to keep mobility levels. So exercises and activities should be functional in nature and help each individual to better overcome their daily challenges. So some may benefit from increasing their strength in order to better move from wheelchair to bed, and from walker to improve their mobility at home. So even exercises are easily transferable to day-to-day life. Individuals may better see the benefits of their work and become more motivated, healthy. And why exercises is like it when exercises is done regularly, what happens is it increases the levels of muscular fitness and cardiorespiratory fitness, and joint range of motion have been associated with improved functional capacity and mobility. And it also helps in reducing the risk of depression, and it also improves the quality of life also. And exercise also helps in maintaining healthy weight, and it also reduces the risk of osteoporosis.
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, a lot of information you gave.
Thank you.
Can you discuss about the vision problem that happens with the CP children?
Okay, so vision actually, working with children with vision difficulties is a separate training that we need to take. So at our school, which we usually have is low vision, and we don't have much children with that condition at our center. So simple low vision difficulties we manage in classroom setup, but otherwise they need specialized training. Okay, so which we don't do at Spastics.
Okay, and is there
once again, children with cerebral palsy have a lot of visual perceptual issues. It is not just not able to see. It is also they are not able to understand what they see because of the perceptual issues. So for that, we need to do specific activities with the children over a period of time to redirect whatever vision that they have, to redirect, and then to make them understand these kind of concepts. Again, sensory integration therapists and the OT therapists also work in this area. So, Subhashini, you can also add a little bit on the training that you give children.
Thank you, ma'am.
Subhashini?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to comment anything on this because I don't see with a vision problem children.
No, perceptual difficulty. See, when we work with children who have difficulty in moving around, mobility, it could also be sometimes visual perceptual issues. Okay, maybe we can only talk basically the various areas of perception, spatial orientation, understanding the space around you. So these are all things that comes not only in the way of learning, also in the way of moving around and doing other activities. Using your hands, even learning ADL skills, activities of daily living, dressing, undressing, brushing. In all these areas, the vision plays visual perception plays a very big role. So we basically train the children in various methods to understand these kind of situations and adapt. We do adapt the style of working so that the children can do things
Yeah,
easily.
we do adapt the things based on the
Yes.
child's visual perception by
Yeah.
using different textures. And when it
Yeah.
comes to mobility, we use different grab bars at different levels so that they can hold it and they can walk around. So in this way.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of it's a huge area that we need to talk when we talk about visual perception and the difficulties and how do you overcome that. And it's all I would only like to say that it's a consistent training with a lot of understanding of the area that we have to do with children.
Thank you, ma'am. So you meant that, say, for example, the child is trying to assess how much the depth of the staircase to put his feet down. Also, there will that will have
Yes.
the
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, actually, yeah, you're right.
Okay. Thank you. And they have asked about autism with CP.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's a very, very difficult condition to handle. We do have, we had one child before and we have one child now, autism with CP. Basically, we need to basically understand again, as I said before, the functional ability of the child in terms of communication, in terms of understanding the situation, physical abilities. What is the ability that the child has? So we have to use the strategies, both that what we use for cerebral palsy as well as for autism with the children. And it is very difficult for the families, for the parents to handle such children. There is nothing, one straight thing that we can do. Understand the child and then work accordingly.
Thank you, ma'am. Any input or any from your side for the mental health of the parents who has children with CP during this particular COVID times?
Yes, Vinaya.
Yeah, as I spoke in that talk, it is interacting with other parents, which is a great communication for the parents to know and be staying in touch. Other than that, there is a big responsibility in their hand to train the child at home. So you will have to keep aside a big part of your time to work with the child so that you continue with the therapy, the learning, and spend activities that is being given to be done. Otherwise, you may see a regression in the child. So yes, parents do have to put in a lot of effort during this pandemic time.
I would like to add, over the years, in so many years of work with spastics and with so many parents, for the last so many years, I have seen, what I have understood is we have to give parents time. It is not things cannot be pushed onto them, saying that you need to do this, you need to do that, because the parents also go through various stages with the child. As the child grows, difficulties, and younger child, there are different set of difficulties. So as professionals who are working with these children, we have a lot of expectations from parents. Parents have to follow what we say. They have to put in so much of effort, spend so much time with the child, train the child at home, this, that. So when we put this kind of pressure, it takes a big toll on the parents' mental well-being. So as professionals, we need to understand the parent is going through one journey. We need to understand, and our expectations should be limited to where the parent is at that stage. And also we have seen that as the children grows, the parents' understanding also improves, and the way they look at the child and they look at the situation also improves. Vinaya is a great example. Similarly, am I. So basically, we learn over the years. We learn to understand, accept, move on with the child basically we limit our expectation. Some parents limit it so much that it is not good for the children. Some parents have such high expectations that is also not good for the child. So we have to kind of take a middle path. Yes, professional help whenever it is required. The parents should be free to ask, get that help. But many of us do work it within ourselves, whether it is a Vinaya or a Padma. Like we all do work within ourselves and then say, okay, we have to kind of move on with the situation. But there are people who are, who can, whom parents can reach out and get help. Definitely.
I would like to add on, ma'am, for this.
Yes.
For this situation, especially when you see parents they have to communicate with each other, parents continuously. And one more thing, what we have observed is during this pandemic situation, especially parents are at home, especially they don't have that stress of running out of house on time and they have to reach somewhere on time, especially parents who are housewives. So they have enough time to spend with their child, and we are seeing that parents are able to work with the child. We always, especially when it comes to activities of daily living, we always give the task for the mother to achieve that task within certain period. But now, but because of their stress and other work, they were not able to work with the child consistently and persistently. But now, during this situation, when you see, because they don't have any, they do not have to rush anywhere, I see parents are working with the children consistently, and I see parents expressing their joy also with the child improving, getting better, especially in ADLs. So I feel parents, this is the right time for you to work with the children, especially in the ADLs part.
Thank you, Subhashini. That was nice.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mrs. Subhashini.
Yeah.
So, what are Yes, ma'am. Please.
Yeah, I just want to add one point for a previous question, the initial question. There was one question about the difference between cerebral palsy and intellectual disability or mental retardation.
Yeah.
As you know, the one main difference is children with mental retardation or intellectual disability, they have difficulties in social communication and in adaptive behavior. Adaptive behavior in the sense understanding the situation and behaving accordingly. That is one area. And as Vinaya said, physical development. They usually don't have a problem in physical development, but then they have a problem in communication. The difference in communication difficulties in cerebral palsy and in intellectual disability is different. In cerebral palsy, children knows what to communicate, how to communicate, but then they don't have the ability to communicate. The oromotor mechanism that is required for communication or the speech production is affected in children with cerebral palsy. Whereas in children with intellectual disability, they have all the mechanisms in right, but still they will not be able to say what to say, when to say. That is the intellectual disability part of it. Okay, and even behavior-wise, the children with intellectual disability will have behavior concerns of a different kind, not understand the social situation. This is one of the main differences.
Ma'am, is it like children with the CP knows things around and but they have restriction with the muscle movement and
yes, correct. Exactly. Yeah, children knows. Children with cerebral palsy knows what is happening around and how they should respond and how they should react, but then they have inability to do so because of their physical condition. Yes.
There was a question. Just a minute, I lost the question. What are the comorbidity condition with the cerebral palsy?
Okay.
So this was explained in the slide that there would be visual difficulties, hearing impairment, seizure disorders, learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities. All these are associated conditions that would come up with cerebral palsy. Okay, so it's not that all are present in all. Certain, it depends on the type of CP, and it differs from child to child.
What are the sports activities that can be suggested to the CP?
Subhashini, would you like to answer?
Yeah. We at Spastic Society of Karnataka, we actually plan sports according to the child's ability, a group of children's ability. And when it comes to sports, we have an inclusion group. It is not that only CP children is there or MR is there. We have an inclusion group. So based on this group, we plan activity, sports. Like for example, if it is a relay race, we shorten the distance. Normally in relay races with normal children, the distances will be little more. So when it comes to our children, we shorten the distances, and it won't be like who will be finishing first. It won't be like a competition. We don't need to encourage the child to participate and complete the activity. And we don't look at who has completed it first. And yeah, that's it.
So any household things or aids that can be used at home at this pandemic situation for these kids to get them involved in doing the activities at home? So the question is, what what household aids or things available at home can be used in this pandemic?
See, when it comes to AIDS, it is again based on each and every child. The aid has to be planned. It is not common that if one child is using one aid, the other child has to use the same aid. It is again based on each child's ability and disability. The aid has to be planned. So if they can say particular problem for the child, based on that, we can tell them what aid they can use at home.
Okay, if the parent or the professional who asked this question is there, can you please ask them? Are you here? Okay, so ma'am, I think Padma ma'am is leaving. She left already.
Yeah, she left.
Okay.
I saw.
Okay. So one question they have
speaking about AIDS, like Subhashini said.
Yes. Yes.
No, I just wanted to add on about the AIDS. It depends on child to child. So based on the need of the child, parents have to develop. So it would literally be on the individual need. So we cannot generally say what aid can be done. Like you said, let the parent ask the specific question, we can answer. Okay.
Okay. She has mentioned that it is a general question. I think she is the professional working with the children.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and one, I think special ed or parent, I don't know, they have asked whether OT or physiotherapy, which will help this child.
Can you repeat, please?
Does OT or physiotherapy, which will help the CP child?
Okay, Subhashini, can you hear?
See, OT is occupational therapist where they work with children's fine motor activity and activities of daily living. And physiotherapists are the one who work with child's working abilities. So both are equally important for a CP child.
Okay. Yes, child with CP because dysfunction of cerebellum or I don't know who is asking this question.
Okay.
So they want to know which part of the brain is involved in this issue that is happening with the CP children.
So there are different types of CP you can see in the PPT which I have presented. So it depends on which type of CP the different parts of the brain is affected. When it comes to the dyskinetic and the other type, it is the cerebellum or basal ganglia that is affected. Okay, but when it comes to the spastic type, it is the motor cortex that is affected.
Okay. And one more question is there, how do CP children do their daily activities or manage their activities?
So here, CP children, this is what we have been discussing about activities of daily living. So right from childhood, we understand the limitations of the child with CP. So depending on his hand function, on his mobility, various techniques are being trained by the physiotherapist to do the activities. And in support to these techniques, aids are introduced so that with the help of aids, they are able to manage their daily living activities. Especially as they move from childhood to adulthood, it would be difficult even for the parent to keep helping the child in these activities. So it is of utmost importance that the child gets training at an early age itself to be independent in these activities. And it is consistently followed, especially at Spastics. We have a physiotherapy department who works with the parents so that these activities can be continued at home. Sessions at school alone would not be enough, so they will have to continue this at home also.
So I would like to just brief up regarding this life skills to children with special needs. So we start with 3 steps. So first step is task analysis, especially with our children. Task analysis is very important because it's a process for breaking down any given task into its component parts. So, for example, when it comes to brushing the teeth, it includes finding a toothbrush, finding a toothpaste, and finding opening the toothpaste cap and squeezing it on the brush. So these are the sequences which includes in this brushing the teeth. But we need to choose one task to train the child. Okay, this is the first step. When it comes to step 2, so it is like creating a visual guide. So many parents create visual guides to help their children with special needs to make sense of and remember and get comfortable with the steps involved in the task. So this visual guide can include photos or clip art style images of each step in the process. For example, each and every time the parent won't be available and can't sit with the child, right? So instead of giving verbal prompt, we can even have the visual guide where it is stick to the lab board. So the child looking at the visual guide has to follow the sequence and do the activity, whether it is in sitting or whether the child has to go to the toilet and follow the sequence. The child has to look at the visual guide and do the activity. So when it comes to step 3, it is prompting and fading. So at first, the child with special needs may need a lot of help in remembering and properly completing each step in a task. So prompting may involve physically physically helping to a child and also hand over hand help. So as they learn, parents will start to fade the prompts. So firstly, they will stop using hand over hand help and instead provide only verbal prompts. So they will start to fade even prompts also. When no prompts are required, the child has learned the task. So slowly, one after the other, we have to fade it away. Firstly, prompt has to fade away, and then we have to give only the gestures can be given. And slowly, once the child has achieved the task, even you can even fade away the gestures also and see how the child is doing. And when it comes to different techniques, we follow different we need to follow small things like rewarding the child. So when a child has performed a self-care task, so remember that you reward the child by giving some social reward, activity reward, or giving having a chart at home, giving a star for the child, or even expressing the joy for the child, saying that you have completed the task. And there is a procedure also for when it comes to dressing. There's a procedure technique called forward chaining and backward chaining, where in forward chaining you do all the activity, and the last activity you have to tell the child to do the activity. Like it is like if it is wearing a pant, you need to wear the pant from bottom and at the hip level. Up to hip level you can up to above knee level you can wear the pant, and from above knee level you can tell the child to pull it up and just pull it up and tighten it. So the child feels so happy that the child has completed the activity. This is a forward chaining. Similarly, there is one more technique called backward chaining. Similarly, when it comes to removing the pant, you need to remove from hip level to below knee level, and up to below knee level, you have to, as a parent, we have to remove it, and from below knee to ankle, the child has to remove. So when a child does this activity, the child feels so happy that the child has completed the activity. So again, and repetition. As I said, the repetition is very important. It's not like today you do and tomorrow you don't do. It's not like that. Repetition has to be there to achieve every task. That is very important. And also, shaping is very important. Shaping is when you reward and appreciate the child when they are approximately able to do the task. It means that you don't look for perfection. Especially in our children, we should not look for perfection. We should only look how the child has done the activity. For example, when it comes to combing the hair, so we need to see how the child is able to hold the comb and how the child is able to do the activity. When you see the child is able to do the activity, again you need to reward. So you are again shaping it. So you need not have to look at the perfection. And also one more technique is grading. Grading is when you give a simple activity to start with and slowly increase the complexity of the task. Every task, it has to be started it with very simple, and then you have to make it as a complex. So for example, combing, when it comes to combing, maybe few children they may not be able to hold normal comb like we are holding. You can give a larger comb where they can hold with good grasp. So there you are grading the activity and make the activity easy for the child. And buttoning, maybe your children are not able to do this the smaller buttons. You can give the larger buttons for the child. So and see how the child is able to do that activity and do it repetitively. And there's one more technique, adaptation. Sometimes planning lessons or an independent living skills curriculum is not enough. Some children with special needs, especially children with physical disabilities, need to be taught an adaptive way of performing the task. So this may also benefit from some adaptive equipment, that is assistive devices. And also next is adapting the environment. Some adaptations in the environment that can help are a wheelchair accessible, a bath chair, a low sink, where the child is able to do at their ability. For example, if the child is not able to keep the belongings at the higher in the cupboard, give them the lower part where they're able to easily reach and arrange their things by themselves independently. And then next is adapting the technique. Sometimes adapting the technique can help the child to be independent. So it's for example, stabilizing the forearms on the table before eating, or sitting down on the bed and putting on the pants. See, for wearing the pants, they not have to stand and wear the pants. They can even sit and wear the pants. That is the adapting the technique, where it will be easy for them to achieve the task. So and for every ADL, especially to achieve the ADL activity, professionals guidance has to be needed, and it should be a routine, it should be consistent, and it should be repetitive. Then only you can achieve that task.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Subhashini. It's really a lot of useful tips that you have given, or strategies that you have given. Hope parents make note of it, and as you said, it's the repetition, consistent, and persistent that matters with the children having the difficulties. Yeah, Arun, you want to take it forward?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I'll just so that's how about the Q&A session, and this is about our upcoming webinars, executive functions and visualization techniques on 26th September and 3rd October respectively will be done by Brindavan Educational Trust. And we would like to thank Spastic Society of Karnataka for accepting and doing the webinar for us, for parents and professionals. And we also thank the speakers for the day and the principal ma'am for sharing their knowledge and provide a lot of information. We thank the participants for coming forward and to learn the sessions. And we have also posted our Telegram group link in the chat window. Kindly please do join for the future updates. Thank you, Vinaya ma'am. Thank you, Subhashini ma'am. Thank you, Vijay ma'am, for the session.
Thank you again. Thank you, Team Embrace, for giving us
Thank you.
this opportunity.
Thank you, Embrace team, and thank you, parents.
Thank you.